They say the past always catches up with you. For years, Grayson believed he had outrun his. He built a quiet life, raising his little girl with patience and love while burying the one secret that could destroy everything. At the office, he was invisible, just another face in the cubicles, until the moment his daughter called the one woman he couldn't face Mom. In that instant, the fragile walls of his carefully built world came crashing down, and everyone in the company turned to see what Grayson could no longer hide. The rain outside streaked across the glass windows of Cartech's headquarters, the kind of storm that muffled the city in gray. Grayson hurried down the corridor, his tie loose, his laptop bag heavy against his shoulder. He was late again after rushing Lily into the daycare downstairs. Work, parenting, bills. It was all a constant balancing act, but he was good at balancing. He had to be. Upstairs, Elena Carr was already seated at the head of the boardroom table. She was everything Grayson wasn't. Polished, commanding, impossible to ignore. The CEO, his boss. He avoided her eyes as he slid into his seat. They never exchanged more than the professional necessities, her clipped orders, his quiet. Yes, and that was fine. That was how it had to be. But when the meeting ended and Grayson slipped out into the hallway, a small voice called out behind him. "Daddy!" Lily's golden hair bounced as she ran down the hallway. His heart stopped. She wasn't supposed to be up here. Before he could reach her, Lily flung herself into Elena's arms, and with the innocent certainty only a child could carry, she whispered a word that silenced the entire floor. "Mom." The office froze. Phones paused mid-ring, keyboards stilled. Dozens of eyes darted between Grayson, his wide-eyed daughter, and Elena Carr, who stood motionless with Lily clinging to her. The word Mom echoed in the sterile corporate air like a bomb detonating. Grayson's stomach lurched. He hurried forward, his voice breaking. "Lily, sweetheart, that's not—" But it was too late. Elena's carefully guarded mask faltered just for a second. Her fingers, which had never once trembled in a boardroom, twitched as she held the child. She looked up, her eyes locking with his, and there it was, the truth they had buried 6 years ago, a truth they had sworn would never see daylight. He had kept his promise. She had built her empire, and now, with one word, it was all unraveling. Elena's voice was barely above a whisper. "Grayson, we need to talk." Grayson scooped Lily into his arms, holding her close, as if shielding her from the stares that pierced through him. His pulse thundered in his ears. "Thank you, Ms. Carr," he mumbled, his voice tight, and turned to retreat toward the elevators. But Elena's hand stopped him. She didn't touch him. She just held her palm out, a quiet command he couldn't ignore. The tension between them was electric, a silent current only they could feel. Years had passed, but standing there, the memory of that single night, of her lips on his, of promises whispered and broken, flooded back. He had buried it all, convinced himself it didn't matter. But now, with Lily in her arms, it mattered more than ever. "Bring her to my office," Elena said finally, her tone calm but brittle, like glass. Grayson froze, torn between the instinct to flee and the duty to obey. He nodded once, his jaw tight. As he carried Lily toward the executive suite, he felt the ground shifting beneath his feet. Inside the office, Elena dismissed her assistant with a flick of her hand. For the first time in years, her walls cracked. "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked, her voice low but sharp. Grayson sank into the chair across from her, Lily asleep against his chest, and whispered the only answer he had. "Because you told me not to." Silence filled the room, heavy and suffocating. Elena stared at the child, her own daughter, the truth finally undeniable. The resemblance was there, the curve of her cheek, the stubborn set of her jaw. She had spent years avoiding motherhood for the sake of her career, for the company she had built with sleepless nights and ruthless choices. But here was the child she had walked away from, living proof of a choice she once thought she'd buried. Grayson adjusted Lily gently, keeping his voice steady. You wanted your life clean. You said a baby would ruin everything. So I raised her alone. His words were neither angry nor accusing. They were simply facts. But they cut deeper than rage ever could. Elena turned to the window, the skyline glittering beyond. Her reflection stared back at her, harder than she felt. I told myself it was better this way, she admitted, her voice trembling. That you, both of you, would be free without me complicating your lives. Grayson shook his head slowly. She's never been free of you. She asks about her mother every birthday, every holiday. And I've lied. Because I thought that's what you wanted. The truth lingered between them, impossible to ignore now. And for the first time, Elena felt the weight of all she had lost. The next day, whispers rippled through the office like wildfire. Employees avoided Grayson's eyes, though their hushed conversations told him everything everyone knew. The story of a single dad and the company's iron-willed CEO had spread faster than any quarterly earnings report. Grayson kept his head down, working quietly at his desk, but his chest ached with the knowledge that his carefully built life was unraveling. He had never asked for attention, never wanted the spotlight. All he had wanted was to give Lily a safe, steady life. Elena, on the other hand, carried herself with her usual poise. She strode through the halls as if nothing had happened, though Grayson noticed the faint hesitation in her steps, the shadow in her eyes. Behind closed doors, she called him into her office again. This can't get out, she said flatly. The board will see me as weak. The investors will panic. You don't understand what's at stake. Grayson clenched his fists. What's at stake is a little girl who deserves the truth. She doesn't care about investors, Elena. She cares about family. The clash of priorities was clear, and neither of them could walk away untouched. That evening, at home in their small apartment, Grayson tried to distract Lily with spaghetti and cartoons, but her little brow furrowed with questions too big for her small voice. Daddy, why did I call her Mom? She looked like my mom. Grayson's throat tightened. He crouched down, meeting her wide eyes. Because she is, sweetheart. She's your mom. The words came out in a whisper, as if speaking them aloud would shatter the room. Lily blinked, her fork forgotten. Then why doesn't she live with us? He swallowed hard. How could he explain choices made before Lily could walk or talk? How could he tell her that the woman she had longed for had chosen ambition over motherhood? It's complicated, he said gently. But she knows now. And maybe, just maybe, things can be different. Later, when Lily fell asleep clutching her stuffed rabbit, Grayson sat by the window, staring at the city lights. He wanted to protect her from disappointment. But deep down, a part of him still longed for the woman he had once held close. The woman who had now become both his boss and his daughter's missing piece. Elena sat in her penthouse, untouched wine in hand. The silence of her apartment was louder than any boardroom. For years, she had convinced herself solitude was strength, that the sacrifices she made proved her worth. But now, the face of a child she couldn't deny haunted her every thought. She pulled out an old box from the back of her closet, one she hadn't touched in years. Inside were photos from her early days at the company, clippings of achievements, and a single envelope she had never mailed. It was a letter, written to a baby she swore she couldn't keep. I'm sorry, it began. Her fingers trembled as she read the words, realizing how hollow they sounded now. Her phone buzzed with a reminder for tomorrow's investor meeting, but for once, she couldn't care less. She wasn't the same Elena anymore, not after Lilia's arms had wrapped around her neck with unearned love. For the first time, Elena admitted the truth to herself. She wanted to know her daughter. But wanting was one thing. Earning it was another. At CarTech headquarters, the fallout was swift. Rumors reached the board, and soon Grayson found himself summoned into a conference room filled with sharp suits and sharper questions. "Mr. Hayes," one director began, "is it true you've been concealing a child connected to our CEO?" Grayson bristled. "It's not your business. My daughter is not a scandal. She's just a little girl." But the whispers of conflict of interest and reputation risk circled the room. The corporate machine had no patience for messy truths. Elena entered mid-discussion, her presence freezing the room. She didn't hesitate. "This matter is personal, and it will remain personal. If anyone here thinks otherwise, they can take it up with me directly." Her tone was lethal. For the first time, she defended Grayson, not as an employee, but as Lily's father. The directors exchanged wary glances but fell silent. Elena had won battles fiercer than this, but when the meeting ended, she turned to Grayson with quiet intensity. "They won't stop digging. We need to decide, together, what happens next." Grayson leaned against the cool glass wall of the conference room after the board cleared out, his chest tight with frustration. "They're not going to stop, Elena. They'll dig until they find what they want, and when they do, it won't just be about you. It'll be about her." Elena's jaw clenched, but there was something softer in her eyes now. "Then let them dig. I won't let them weaponize my daughter." Her voice cracked ever so slightly on the word daughter, and Grayson felt the weight of it. She was acknowledging Lily, not as a secret, but as part of her. Still, the danger was real. Paparazzi, investors, competitors, they all fed on scandal. And if word leaked to the press, Lily's face would be everywhere. The thought made Grayson sick. He had fought for 6 years to keep her safe, ordinary, happy. Elena stepped closer, lowering her voice. "We'll need to control the story before it controls us." Grayson shook his head. "She's not a headline, Elena. She's a child, my child." But even as he said it, he knew the truth. Lily was theirs, and there was no undoing that now. The next weekend, Elena asked to see Lily outside the office. Grayson hesitated but finally agreed, taking her to a quiet park on the edge of the city. The playground was filled with laughter, families, and a kind of warmth Elena had rarely allowed herself to witness. Lily clung shyly to her father's hand at first, eyeing Elena with curiosity. "Do you like swings?" Elena asked, crouching to her level. Lily nodded, eyes wide, but didn't let go of Grayson. Slowly, with coaxing, she agreed to let Elena push her on the swing. The sight unsettled Grayson. Elena, the woman who commanded boardrooms, who terrified competitors, looked awkward and unsure, yet oddly tender as she pushed the swing gently. Lily's giggles filled the air, bridging years of absence with innocent trust. Grayson watched, torn between admiration and fear. Was this real, or just guilt gnawing at Elena's conscience? Either way, Lily's joy was undeniable. For the first time, Grayson wondered if letting Elena into their lives could be more than a mistake. It could be a gift. Days blurred into weeks, and Elena began carving out time in her brutal schedule to see Lily. Sometimes it was just half an hour in the daycare, other times a walk through the park. Slowly, Lily's questions shifted. Instead of asking why her mother wasn't around, she began asking when she would see her next. For Grayson, it was both heartwarming and terrifying. He had always been Lily's anchor, her one constant. Now Elena was becoming a new kind of presence. Exciting, dazzling, but unpredictable. He worried what would happen if Elena pulled away again. One night, after Lily fell asleep, Grayson confronted Elena in her office. "You can't just dip in and out of her life. If you're going to be her mother, you need to mean it." Elena's eyes burned with unspoken regret. "I do mean it, but I don't know how to be what she needs. I've spent my whole life being a CEO, not a mom." Grayson sighed, leaning against her desk. "Then learn. She doesn't need perfect. She just needs you to show up. For the first time in a long time, Elena didn't have a counter-argument. She just nodded quietly as though conceding he was right. The press got wind of the story sooner than they had hoped. A blurry photo of Elena at the park with Lily surfaced on a gossip blog. Within hours, the headline screamed across social media, "Car Tech CEO's secret family." Reporters camped outside Grayson's apartment, cameras flashing as he tried to walk Lily to school. He shielded her face with his jacket, his stomach churning with fury. This was exactly what he had feared: the invasion, the chaos, the loss of normalcy. Elena acted swiftly. She called a press conference, her voice steady as cameras clicked. "Yes, this is my daughter," she declared, shocking the room. "She is not a scandal nor a liability. She is my family, and I will protect her." Grayson watched from the sidelines, his heart torn. Part of him wanted to trust her, to believe she meant it. But part of him knew words weren't enough. Promises had been broken before. Could they really hold this fragile new family together against the storm? The fallout was brutal. Investors panicked, stocks dipped, and Elena's rivals circled like vultures. In the boardroom, directors whispered about ousting her, claiming she was distracted and compromised. Elena fought back with her trademark fire, but the cracks showed. At home, Grayson struggled to shield Lily from the chaos. "Daddy, why are people taking pictures of me?" she asked one morning, her voice trembling. He knelt, brushing her hair back. "Because you're very special, sweetheart. But don't worry, I won't let them hurt you." Late one evening, Elena came to his apartment. She looked exhausted, her sharp edges dulled by the weight of the week. "They want me gone," she admitted. "The board thinks I can't lead anymore." Grayson studied her quietly. "So what matters more, Elena? Your company or your daughter?" For once, she didn't have an immediate answer, and that scared them both. Elena made her choice clear a week later. In a heated board meeting, when pressed to step down, she stood tall and declared, "If being a mother disqualifies me from leadership, then perhaps you need a new leader. But I will not abandon my child again." The room erupted in gasps, arguments, threats of walkouts. But her words carried weight. Some directors admired her courage, others despised it. Regardless, the message was out. Elena Carr would not be bullied into sacrificing family for business. Grayson heard the speech later on a recording. His chest tightened with conflicting emotions. He had wanted her to choose Lily, but he also knew what this company meant to her. She had risked everything for their daughter, for them. That night he found himself staring at Elena differently. Not as a CEO, not as his boss, but as the woman who, despite her flaws, was fighting for the same little girl he loved more than life itself. Elena began spending more time at Grayson's apartment, often helping Lily with homework or reading bedtime stories. It was clumsy at first. She mispronounced words, stumbled through simple math, but Lily didn't care. She just laughed, happy to have her mother nearby. For Grayson, it was surreal. The woman who once seemed untouchable now sat on his worn couch in sweatpants, hair pulled back, reading about dragons and fairies. She was human in a way he had never seen. One evening, after Lily fell asleep, Elena lingered. "She loves you so much," she whispered. Grayson smiled faintly. "I'm all she's ever known." Their eyes met, years of tension simmering between them. Neither spoke of that night long ago, of how everything had started. But the silence between them was heavy with possibility. With a second chance, neither dared admit they wanted. Just when things began to settle, Elena's ex-rival, an ambitious executive named Richard Hale, saw an opportunity. He launched a smear campaign painting Elena as unfit to lead, claiming her personal life was a dangerous distraction. The attacks grew vicious: anonymous leaks, hostile articles, whispers of shareholder votes. Grayson saw the toll it took on Elena, the dark circles under her eyes, the clipped patience in her tone. Yet she kept pushing, refusing to back down. Grayson confronted her one evening. "You don't have to keep proving yourself to them." She laughed bitterly. "Yes, I do. Because if I don't, they'll take everything, and I won't let Lily see me fail." He stepped closer. "Lily doesn't care about board votes. She cares about bedtime stories and pancakes on Saturdays. She cares about you, that's all." For a moment, Elena let herself lean into his words, letting the armor slip. But only for a moment. The custody conversation came unexpectedly. One morning, as they sipped coffee in silence, Elena said softly, "We need to make this official. I want joint custody." Grayson's chest tightened. He had been Lily's sole parent her entire life. The thought of splitting her time, of not hearing her laughter every day, was unbearable. "She's my whole world," he said hoarsely. "I can't lose her." Elena reached across the table. "I don't want to take her from you. I just want to be part of her world too. I know I don't deserve it, but I want to try." The fear in her voice caught him off guard. This wasn't the unshakable CEO speaking. This was a mother, fragile and uncertain. Slowly, he nodded. "We'll figure it out." For her. The custody hearings were quiet but tense. Lawyers shuffled papers, judges asked questions, and Elena's life was laid bare. Her long hours, her lack of maternal history, her public scandals, all of it scrutinized. Grayson defended her, surprising even himself. "She's trying," he told the judge. "She deserves the chance to be a mother." Elena's eyes flicked to him, gratitude shining through exhaustion. The judge ruled for joint custody, with gradual integration. Lily would spend weekends with Elena at first, then longer stretches as trust grew. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. That night, Grayson tucked Lily into bed, her small voice drowsy with excitement. "Mommy said we'll bake cookies next weekend." He smiled, kissing her forehead. For once, hope outweighed fear. Elena's first weekend with Lily was chaotic. Flour exploded across her sleek penthouse kitchen, chocolate smeared the marble counters, and smoke alarms wailed from a burnt batch of cookies. But Lily laughed until her belly hurt, and Elena laughed too, an unfamiliar, unguarded sound. Grayson picked Lily up Sunday evening, bracing for disaster. Instead, Lily chattered nonstop about cookies, games, and falling asleep in her mom's arms. "It was the best weekend ever, Daddy." He glanced at Elena, who stood in the doorway with flour still streaked in her hair, and for the first time he believed she could do this. She could be more than a CEO. She could be a mother. As they exchanged a quiet good night, Elena whispered, "Thank you for trusting me." Grayson's heart softened, though his guard remained. Trust, after all, took time. Months passed, and a rhythm began to form. Lily thrived, bouncing between her parents' homes with joy. Elena grew more confident, packing lunches, braiding hair, even showing up at school plays. Each small step stitched together a bond once thought impossible. For Grayson, life felt fuller and stranger. He had spent years resenting Elena, then fearing her return. Now he found himself watching her with something new, something dangerously close to admiration, maybe even affection. One evening, after a school recital, Elena stood beside him in the auditorium, their shoulders brushing. "She's incredible," Elena whispered. Grayson nodded. "She gets that from you." Their eyes lingered, long enough for unspoken truths to hum between them. It was no longer just about Lily. It was about them, about whether love could grow from the wreckage of broken choices. Richard Hale made one final move, trying to oust Elena during a shareholder vote. The meeting was tense, cameras flashing, investors murmuring. Richard painted her as unstable, distracted by domestic drama. But Elena stood tall, her voice unwavering. "If being a mother disqualifies me, then perhaps we need to redefine leadership. Because strength is not about sacrifice, it's about balance. And I will prove that to you. Grayson watched from the audience, pride swelling. This was not the woman who once chose ambition over everything else. This was someone stronger, someone whole. The vote narrowly favored Elena. She remained CEO. Richard stormed out, defeated, and in that moment, Grayson realized she had done more than protect her position. She had chosen to fight for both her company and her daughter, refusing to lose either. Spring arrived with soft breezes and blooming flowers. In the park where it all began, Grayson, Elena, and Lily spread a picnic blanket under the sun. Lily darted around with her kite, her laughter carrying across the grass. Elena sat beside Grayson, her hand brushing his. "We've come a long way," she murmured. He nodded, watching their daughter twirl. "Yeah, and we're just getting started." For the first time, there was no fear, no secrecy, no weight of lies. There was only a family, messy, imperfect, but real. Elena leaned into him slightly, and he didn't pull away. As Lily ran back, throwing her arms around them both, Grayson finally let himself believe it. Their story wasn't about broken promises anymore. It was about redemption, forgiveness, and the simple, powerful truth that love, once found, was worth fighting for.